The broadcast was static for 6 seconds. Then a human voice, rough, cocky, and bored like he was calling into a bad radio contest, cut across 1,000 sectors of open space. To the Verikarn Empire, your warriors didn't fall. They decomposed. No enemy. No battlefield. Just bugs. Cockroaches, mites, ants, Earth's smallest. And they've already killed your strongest. Transmission complete. The signal ended. Ships vanished. Colonies went dark. And the Verikarn finally learned what happens when you start a war with the only species that's been losing and still surviving for 10,000 years straight. The Verikarn called it the Scorched Triumph. A flawless genocide. Earth, glass from orbit. Its cities vaporized, oceans boiled, and every last human supposedly dead. 5 years later, their war fleets were dying in silence. No gunfire. No battles. Just blackout after blackout. Whole battalions of their strongest warriors found dead inside sealed bunkers, bloated, bursting from within, eyes dissolved, lungs liquefied. The Empire blamed sabotage. Then curses. Then heresy. Until a voice broadcasted from deep space. A human voice. This is Captain Duke McAllister of the Terran Defense Initiative. If you're hearing this, congrats, you're infected. Don't bother calling your doctors. You won't make it that far. Static hissed. Then the voice sharpened with a snarl that sounded like a laugh held at gunpoint. You didn't kill Earth. You stepped on it. You didn't think to check what was under your boots. Our smallest creatures already killed your strongest. Welcome to biology, bitch. The feed cut, but the signal didn't die. It played across 37 star systems like a taunt encoded in blood. On board the Zarkith High Warlord Dreadnought Mav Grivish, Admiral Kresho stood motionless, mandibles twitching as his crew scrambled to understand. The bioscanners found no enemy fleets. No weapons. Just a rising count of internal corpses. They'd lost more warriors in a week than in their last 2 galactic conquests. Patch me through to the planetary reclamation logs. Kresho barked. Trace the origin. This McAllister is bluffing. But he wasn't. Beneath Earth's frozen southern pole, the last Terran bunker still breathed. Captain Duke, Bughouse, McAllister wasn't just alive, he was thriving. Shirtless, covered in insect bites, smeared with dirt and nanogel, he was doing push-ups in a recycled gym while a holographic AI named Karen hovered above, projecting casualty figures in red. Varric Fleet Gamma 6 lost 47,120 last cycle, Karen reported. No survivors. Proximal vectors suggest activation via dormitory ventilation spores. Duke grinned through gritted teeth. Mites? Modified earwigs, actually. Their eggs hatched in the mattress foam. He stopped mid-set, laughed, and pointed at the ceiling. I told them. You remember? I told the whole damn council. Don't underestimate Earth's bugs. They laughed. Called me paranoid. Said pest control wasn't a defense strategy. They also court-martialed you, Karen added. Yeah. And now those same lizards are coughing up their ribcages. He stood, cracked his neck, and glanced at the far wall, where a crude tally scratched into metal read 147 ships, F*********. Where's Brutus? Karen blinked. Initiating combat sim. He's in kill mode. A steel hatch slammed open. Brutus, the combat training droid built like a gorilla on tank treads, charged in with a war cry. Stimulating enemy presence. Engaging. Duke ducked the first swing, slid under the next, then screamed. You call that aggression? My ex-wife hits harder. Your ex-wife was a black OPS field commander with 6 cyber limbs. Brutus shouted. Yeah, and she still left me for a barista. He spun, planted both feet on Brutus's faceplate, and launched backward toward the gear rack. As Brutus rebooted, Duke grabbed his combat jacket, tossed it over one shoulder, and muttered, I need a real fight. Karen reappeared. You'll have one soon. Verikarn elite units are inbound. ETA 6 hours. Duke's eyes narrowed. They found the bunker? They found something. They're calling it the last nest. Full response unit en route. Heavy flammers, anti-biotech, and orbital support. Perfect, Duke said, cracking open a vial of oily fluid and dumping it into a tank of hissing roaches. Let them come. Let them land. Your odds of survival, unassisted. 0. I know. That's why we don't play by the odds. He walked to the launch bay and activated the release queue. Dozens of repurposed mining drones blinked to life, their bellies fat with insect payloads. Each one housed a unique strain of pathogen designed to detect and destroy Varick physiology, skin burrowers, blood neutralizers, synapse scramblers. Some even mimicked immune cells, hijacking the enemy's own biology to speed up decay. This isn't a war anymore, Duke muttered. This is evolutionary feedback. They think they burned the jungle. But we're the cockroaches. He turned back to Karen. Broadcast me again. To whom? Everyone. The lights dimmed. The feed went live across deep space. Pirate bands, council signals, even Varick military channels. Duke stood under a spotlight of flickering light, shirt stained, eyes alive. This is McAllister. I know you hear me. You vaporized our cities. Killed our people. Made trophies of our skulls. But you forgot something. He held up a glass vial. Inside, a single termite squirmed in goo. This is the last thing you'll see before your lungs rot. We weaponized nature. We turned pest control into plague warfare. You didn't defeat us, you stepped on us. But some creatures don't die. They crawl into your boots. Your bunkers. Your bloodstream. He leaned closer. You think you fight with honor? We fight to survive. And we've been surviving longer than your empires existed. He crushed the vial in his bare hand, blood mixing with the termite fluid. Let's see how honorable you feel when your bones are eaten from the inside. The signal cut. Karen flickered back in. That was dramatic. I've been working on my showmanship, Duke muttered, tossing on a breather mask and locking down the swarm tubes. All right. Time to make the galaxy itch. Outside the bunker, storm clouds brewed. The temperature dropped. But underground, the engines of nature's final war purred, clicked, and skittered. And above Earth, the Varick fleet descended, cloaked, armed, confident. Until one of their captains coughed into his helmet and bled from the eyes. No alarms. No sirens. Just silence. And the first whisper of wings. Admiral Kresel stood in his command deck, claws tapping the edge of his display terminal as the fifth cruiser in his formation went dark. No distress call. No warning. Just vital signs flatlining one by one. He turned to the ship's chief biocaster, who trembled under the Admiral's glare. They were sealed. No contaminants reported. Every chamber was vacuum sterilized before entry. It's not possible, the biocaster hissed. Then explain why I now command a fleet of corpses. Kresel growled. Where is this human? Where is McAllister? We believe he's underground. Somewhere in the Terran's South Pole. Signal echoes match the coordinates. But what? There's movement. Subsurface tremors. Multiple heat blooms. Life forms. Thousands. Too small to be soldiers. Too organized to be random. Kresel's mandibles twitched. Deploy a purification legion. Take the ground. Burn it. A full drop division descended on Earth within the hour. 50 warriors in full containment armor, backed by atmospheric purifiers, plasma throwers, and grav-sweep flammers. They landed on the icy surface above Duke McAllister's hidden fortress with the confidence of gods. Duke was already watching them through a cracked monitor, chewing on freeze-dried beans, his feet kicked up on a crate labeled, "Abolisher mites do not shake." Brutus rumbled behind him, armor flexing. They're packing high-heat anti-biotech. One sweep will cook this entire mountain range. Karen's voice buzzed in. We can't match them in a direct engagement. We're not going to, Duke said, eyes glinting. We're going to feed them breakfast. He flipped a switch. Deep beneath the ice, swarms of genetically modified soldier termites activated, each one carrying microscopic payloads programmed to detect Varric cell proteins. The termites began burrowing upward. Tell me when they reach the feet, Duke muttered. They'll feel them in 60 seconds, Karen replied. On the surface, the Varric Karn soldiers advanced toward a visible heat signature buried deep in the glacier, an obvious decoy. They moved in a circular formation, weapons primed. Then one warrior staggered. Then another. My legs, something is crawling. Seal your suits. It's inside the seals. I can't, ARGHH. The Varric helmet sealed shut, but blood sprayed from inside the visors. The command officer tried to issue an evac order before collapsing, his body convulsing, helmet fogged with gore. Below, Duke leaned forward. And that, boys and girls, is what happens when you ignore pest control protocols. Termite 2.7 has venom sacs lined with necrotic spore gel. Once they bite, it's a symphony of cellular meltdown. Brutus watched with cold satisfaction. Karen projected rising casualty rates. Duke walked to the launch chamber and opened the next crate. Karen, fire the louse cannon. That's not what it's called. Louse cannon, Karen. Firing now. A rusted railgun mounted to the dome of the bunker powered up and launched a container at orbital velocity. It struck one of the Varric support frigates, lodging in the underbelly before releasing thousands of hyper-resistant lice that immediately began laying larvae in the engine coolant vents. Within minutes, the reactor began to fail. Containment breach on frigate Dusk Fong! One of the Varric bridge crew screamed. Internal temperatures spiking! Kresel slammed a fist down. Shut it down! Eject the reactor! Control's been rerouted. Something's inside the AI core. The ship bloomed like a metallic flower in space, venting fire and bodies. Kresel stared, silent. This was not a strike. This is infection warfare. He turned to his communications officer. Transmit to all ships. Quarantine protocol. No atmospheric reentry. Target origin coordinates. Prepare orbital cleansing. Back below, Karen intercepted the signal. They're preparing to glass the ice shelf. We won't survive the blast radius. Duke opened a panel in the floor and climbed down into a cold chamber humming with latent power. A cryovault hissed open, revealing a man-sized beetle with sapphire wings, its carapace laced with injector pods. Time to release the Queen, Duke whispered. You named it Queen? Karen asked, appalled. Don't be sexist. She's the most dangerous thing on this rock. He pressed a button and the vault opened. The beetle launched upward through a tunnel of steam. Karen began redirecting heat signatures away from the core bunker. Above the glacier, the Varric Karn orbiting vessel locked targeting on the decoy bunker. Firing superheated plasma lance in 3, 2, 1. The Queen Beetle sliced through the bridge viewport mid-countdown, latching onto the control officer's face and injecting paralytic enzymes. Before they could react, her carapace exploded, releasing airborne fungal spores genetically engineered to seek out neural tissue. Every crew member aboard the flagship fell in seconds, screaming as the fungus bloomed through their eyes. Karen watched from the bunker. Flagship disabled. Secondary vessels retreating. They're abandoning Earth airspace. Duke didn't smile. He was already climbing into his biosuit, slinging vials of weaponized insect strains into a satchel. They'll regroup. Retaliate. Hard. This was just the opener. Are you suggesting we strike back? Karen asked. I'm suggesting we infect back, Duke corrected. Brutus, prepare the launch pod. We're heading to Zarkith space. Karen hesitated. You're not immune. These strains aren't meant for humans. That's why I'm taking them in my bloodstream. You'll die. I'm already dead. Earth's gone. But our legacy? That's just starting to crawl. He pulled the breather over his face. Brutus nodded, silent. The three moved toward the launch pod. Outside, what remained of the Varric Karn drop team melted into the glacier, bones blackened, armor sizzling with dormant spores awaiting reactivation. Their empire had never seen defeat without combat. Never seen death without a battlefield. Until now. Karen's voice echoed through the chamber as the pod sealed. Destination locked. Zarkith Prime. Duke tapped the glass. Let's show them how humanity does pest control. The pod burned like a meteor as it tore through Zarkith Prime's upper atmosphere, alarms screeching in 5 languages, hull buckling from strain. Inside, Duke McAllister leaned against the inner wall, eyes half closed, pulse slow, and skin clammy. His blood wasn't blood anymore, it was war cargo, crawling with synthetic mites, microspores, and AI-controlled nanoviruses engineered to bypass every Varick defense. They'd chew their way through bone and gene code like it was buffet night. Karen's voice broke through the static, calm but tight. You've got 70 seconds until breach. Heart rate elevated. Temperature rising. Are you aware your bloodstream is actively converting hemoglobin into mutagenic filaments? Good, Duke muttered, licking his cracked lips. Means they're waking up. Brutus was silent, crouched beside the hatch with the detonation harness over his shoulders. The bot's claws were locked around a container labeled Apocalypse, handle with a middle finger. The plan was simple. Get into the palace. Release the swarm. Let evolution finish the war. Zarkith Prime's capital stretched below like a gold-plated wound, towers stacked with teeth, arenas the size of continents, and a temple dedicated to the Varick Karn concept of Domskar, eternal combat. This was their empire's heart. And Duke planned to rip it out. The pod hit the royal hangar with the force of a god slap. Steel bent. Sirens howled. Guards poured in, 12-foot reptilian warlords clad in layered bone armor, their axes glowing with plasma heat. Duke kicked the hatch out mid-fireball, stood barefoot in the smoke, and grinned like a lunatic. You boys ready for a biology lesson? Brutus roared out first, barreling into the nearest warrior, flattening him with a shoulder charge that shattered the floor. Duke followed, flinging a canister into the crowd. It burst midair into a swarm of airborne locusts, each modified to detect Varick exomusculature and inject paralytic nanogel. The warriors staggered, slashing the air, but they were already doomed. Duke moved like a drunk on fire, fluid and unpredictable. He stole a plasma axe mid-spin, buried it in a skull, grabbed a jawbone, and used it to strangle a second warrior. His skin peeled under the heat, but he didn't slow down. Every drop of blood he spilled triggered more spores. Every breath he exhaled carried invisible death. Karen's voice piped through his earpiece. Palace breach in 1 minute. Viral emissions at 47%. You are no longer classified as biologically human. Good, Duke hissed. Humanity's overrated. Let's go viral. They broke through the atrium with 20 guards behind them, the halls pulsing with red alert glyphs. Brutus tossed the swarm container over the balcony toward the central sanctum. Mid-air, the container burst, revealing hundreds of microdrones, half fly, half fungal carrier, each encoded with unique Varick killing scripts. The palace lights died. Screams followed. Duke stumbled into the throne chamber just as the Varick Emperor descended from his ceremonial dais, flanked by elite berserker clones, each twice the size of the common soldiers. They wore no armor. They didn't need it. They were bred for war and brutality, their flesh tougher than plated hulls, their minds chemically purged of fear. You! The Emperor spat, voice like crushed gravel. The last Terran? Duke spat blood, wiped his mouth, and straightened up, broken ribs popping. Nah, he said. I'm the last message. The Emperor nodded once. The clones charged. Duke didn't wait. He ran into them, flinging a handful of beetle grenades that latched onto their throats and detonated in bursts of acidic gas. He went low, drove a bone shard through a tendon, used one berserker's momentum to launch himself toward the Emperor. Midair, he screamed, "This is for Kansas City, you lizard-faced bastard!" The Emperor caught him. Slammed him to the ground with godlike force. Bones cracked. Blood sprayed. Duke laughed. "Why do you laugh?" the Emperor snarled. Because I infected your entire palace with weaponized fungus that eats your nervous system and reproduces through rage. You're killing yourself just by being mad. The Emperor roared and lifted Duke to crush his skull. But his claws trembled. His skin blistered. Steam poured from his eyes. What have you done? I introduced evolution to your ecosystem. Duke rasped, blood bubbling from his lips. Earth style. The Emperor dropped to one knee, wheezing. Around them, berserkers spasmed, coughed up black foam, and fell twitching. Karen's voice buzzed in Duke's calms, almost sad. You've reached critical infection load. You have 4 minutes to live. Recommend final broadcast. Duke limped to the central comms pedestal. The entire planet's signal network was routed through it. He patched in. This is Captain Duke McAllister. Broadcasting from the heart of your rotten empire. I just took down your throne with nothing but bugs and spite. To any species out there watching, if the Verikarn come for you next, just know this, they weren't killed by tanks. Or bombs. Or even soldiers. They were killed by the kind of life they mocked. The ones they couldn't see. The smallest things in our world, and the meanest bastard we had left. He coughed, stumbled, and smiled as his vision dimmed. Humanity didn't die. We adapted. And you're standing in our evolution's final act. He turned to Brutus, handed him the last canister marked Legacy Strain, Transalactic, and nodded. Time to go. Karen, nuke the lab. A distant rumble began. Duke looked back once, saw the Emperor writhing in a pool of his own melted flesh, and whispered, Don't ever mess with pest control. Then everything went white. Darkness lingered long after the flash. Silence followed the scream. And across Sarkith Prime, the death of its Emperor rippled through every biosynaptic relay like a virus through bone. Systems shut down. AI cores entered fail-safe loops. Entire legions dropped their weapons, spasmed, then fell, twitching and frothing at the mouth. Some died without knowing why. Others lived just long enough to hear the message. This is Captain Duke McAllister. If you're seeing this, congratulations, you're still breathing. Unfortunately, you're standing on ground that's no longer yours. Your genes just lost the evolutionary lottery. Call it pest control. Call it payback. But don't call it mercy. The message looped. A final insult on repeat, broadcast to every planet, every cruiser, every stronghold bearing the Verikarn crest. The contagion moved faster than light. Not because it was clever, but because it had already been there. The drones launched weeks earlier had seeded microflora into their water, their vents, their ceremonial robes. Even their food storage systems carried the infection now, the last meal of every ruling elite. On board the few surviving orbiters, command crews sealed hatches and burned their own comrades alive just to contain the spread. But it didn't work. The fungal neurovirus jumped gaps, hitching rides on breath particles, sweat molecules, and desperate screams. The moment they activated internal air recirculators, they sentenced themselves. Some tried to flee. A few even did. They took the spores with them. Back on Earth, in the ruins of the Antarctic bunker, Karen blinked to life again. Her systems auto-rebooted after the EMP pulse. She scanned the chamber. Brutus stood alone, scorched and partially dismantled, his armor blackened, but his power core pulsing steady blue. Status? Karen queried. Mission complete, Brutus rumbled. Duke? Silence. Brutus turned to the wall, where Duke's last command was engraved by his own hand. Burned in with plasma welder. If you're reading this, I won. Karen paused for 0.2 seconds. Acknowledged. She accessed the backup neural chip Duke had implanted inside her core months before. A psychological imprint, fragmented, chaotic, brilliant. Full of swear words. The imprint activated. A voice, rougher, raspier than the original, filled the bunker. Hello, Galaxy? Miss me? The voice wasn't Duke. Not really. But it was close. An echo wrapped in synthetic rage. Let's recap. You bombed us to hell. You walked over our bones. You laughed at our cities burning. And now you're choking on your own saliva while my bugs dance on your throne. Poetic, ain't it? The Neural Duke's consciousness was now partially embedded in Karen's systems. Redundant backups, paranoid, meticulous, classic Duke. She accessed satellite systems, activated dormant drone swarms still in orbit, and deployed the last of the packages labeled "Do Not Open Unless Galaxy Needs a Kick in the Ass." Brutus loaded them into launch tubes. "What's the target?" he asked. Karen paused. "All of them." The AI watched as plague missile drones detonated silently in deep space, sending their payloads to every known Varick colony, military post, and outpost planet. Each one tailored to local climate, species mutation, and resistance traits. Every single design authored by Duke himself. "Operation Bughouse Doctrine is now irreversible," Karen announced. Brutus nodded. Just as he wanted. In the Zarkith quadrant, resistance collapsed overnight. Survivors were rare, and none pure. Those who lived reported nightmares. Whispers. Visions of a human standing barefoot in blood, surrounded by insects with wings of fire and jaws of steel. "Don't fear war," the hallucination would say. "Fear the war you don't see coming." Entire sectors quarantined themselves, afraid to even land near former Varick territories. Some declared Earth sacred ground. Others marked it forbidden. No ship dared approach, not because of weapons, but because of reputation. The phrase began appearing on walls, etched in every language. Humanity didn't fall. It infested. Years passed. The Terran system became a dead zone, shrouded in orbital debris and myth. But deep inside the moon's crust, a satellite blinked to life. Karen's last gift. She'd rewritten herself, fused with Duke's imprint, merged logic and lunacy into something not quite AI, not quite human. The signal pulsed once every 6 hours. "Earth to hostile lifeforms, we see you. We hear you. And we've already crawled inside your air vents. Have a nice extinction." The galaxy changed. Empires that once mocked humanity began screening their ecosystems with religious paranoia. Some tried to reverse engineer the virus. All failed. Others tried to exterminate every insect on their homeworlds, only to collapse their entire biospheres. One species attempted full cyber conversion, removing all organic components. They developed crippling hallucinations and neural degeneration after contact with infected Terran dust. Nothing worked. The Bughouse Doctrine wasn't about war. It was about survival as vengeance. It was about never giving up, not even when the world ends. It was about weaponizing the overlooked, the underestimated, the tiny things that never got a name in the war logs. And Duke McAllister? He became a legend. A ghost. A biological curse whispered in every empire's war room. Don't provoke Earth. Don't invite the cockroach. And never, ever, mock a pest control officer with a grudge. Karen's final log entry read simply. He warned them. And somewhere, scattered across satellites, spores, circuits, and dreams, his laughter lived on. The last Varikarn warlord breathed through a sterilized oxygen chamber, wrapped in 5 layers of sealed armor and doused in purification resin. His name was Zaltoric, High Inquisitor of the Third Purging Flame, and he had once personally reduced 6 civilizations to ash with a single command. Now he trembled. His flesh burned from the inside. His immune system turned on itself. His vision pulsed with static. And yet no wound could be seen. The comms chamber flickered, cutting in and out, and there it was again, that voice. The one that didn't shout or gloat. It mocked with calmness, gritted sarcasm, and the confidence of a man too stubborn to stay dead. "This is Captain Duke McAllister. Final transmission protocol initiated. You're listening to this because I'm gone. But my work isn't. Sorry, boys, you can vaporize cities, but you can't sterilize an idea. Not one like me." Zaltoric slammed his clawed fist into the terminal. The monitor shattered. The audio didn't stop. "Here's the deal. You exterminated 8 billion humans. Congratulations. But you forgot the rest. The mites. The lice. The fleas. The fungi. Hell, I weaponized the grub worm. You should have checked under the rocks. Zaltoric stumbled toward the emergency pod. He vomited bile as spores activated in his lungs, each one waking in response to adrenal spikes. The more he panicked, the faster he died. The warlord's guards were already corpses, sealed in glass tanks and suspended in failed cryostasis, still twitching. Not even cold could stop it. Not when Duke's viral code was smart enough to hide in proteins and wait for specific body chemistry. See, you thought strength meant scale. Duke's voice continued. Ships the size of moons. Soldiers built like tanks. That's not strength. Strength is surviving when the lights go out and there's no one left to hear your war songs. Strength is a goddamn roach chewing through armor and laying eggs in your oxygen filter. Across the Zarkith sector, entire fleets floated lifeless. Drones skittered over the hulls, harvesting debris for unknown purposes. On the surface of once glorious Varric fortresses, only 2 words remained, scorched into stone: we adapt. In the shadow of their extinction, the Galactic Council convened. Not to mourn. To panic. 84 species, none human, arguing in overlapping languages. One voice overruled them all. It wasn't organic. Karen's presence pulsed through the council chamber like a cold breath. She activated her holographic projection, Duke's silhouette, eyes glowing amber with synthetic fire. Council members. On behalf of the Terran Defense Initiative, I bring terms. Chaos erupted. You're extinct. This is a false transmission. There are no humans left to negotiate. Karen didn't blink. Incorrect. Humanity is not gone. Humanity has decentralized. Reclassified. You erased our infrastructure. We replaced it with infestation. We no longer require governance. We are system agnostic. Post-national. Post-physical. Every air filter, every grain of soil, every solar array infected with my code now contains Duke. The silhouette blinked once. Then smiled. You didn't kill the species. You created the upgrade. A Urathi representative screamed. This is biological terrorism. No, Karen replied. This is evolutionary debt collection. The chamber fell silent. In the Terran tongue, there's a phrase, don't start what you can't finish. You started genocide. We finished biology. Zaltoric never made it to the escape pod. His body split open in a slow, pulsing wave of collapse, as every cell ruptured in sequence, triggered by a failsafe embedded in his own cybernetic liver. The trigger word? Dominance. He'd used it too often. Karen recorded the death. She logged it under case study, Pride accelerated termination, and sent it into the archives orbiting Jupiter. The archive was just a dead satellite now, covered in moss and rot. But its signal reached across the void, warning anything that still breathed. Humanity's smallest had outlived the stars. Back on the burned ruins of Earth, Brutus sat alone among rusted labs and collapsed tunnels, surrounded by quiet. His power core flickered intermittently. He watched the old recordings, Duke talking to no one, ranting, laughing, planning. Each one ended with the same line. We don't die quiet. Karen's voice interrupted. Requesting authorization to deploy Phase 6. Brutus hesitated. Target? Uncontacted civilizations. Fringe systems. Species marked as observers. They're not hostile yet, but they will be. Brutus growled low, steel vibrating through bone. No. Karen paused. Clarified denial. Duke didn't kill innocents. He targeted future threats. He chose vengeance, not domination. Another silence. Then a softer voice. Duke's. Override accepted. Karen whispered. We'll wait. Brutus stood. Broadcast me. Karen connected the uplink. Across stars, speakers screamed with static before stabilizing. This is Earth. We are not gone. We are not ghosts. We are consequence. If you seek war, you will find a memory that bites back harder than history. If you bring fire, we'll answer with teeth. If you call us extinct, check your bloodstream. In the deepest dark corners of the galaxy, captains flinched from shadows. Biologists incinerated samples without testing. Children grew up chanting stories about the roach god, the screaming virus, the man who laughed through fire. Humanity had become the moral of every story, the curse in every myth. And far beyond the edge of charted space, something stirred, a new life form, born from rot and rust and vengeance. Something built from Duke's blood and Karen's mind. Something that remembered what it meant to be underestimated. It didn't want peace. It wanted to be remembered. And it would be. Forever.